My cousin woke up in a mortuary. For this testimony, go and grab popcorn, go and get your drink and sit down because you are in for a long ride. Now, between 2017 and 2018, I was still in school. So I came back home for a short holiday, a 2 weeks holiday. And then I have a cousin in the US. She has always had this sickle cell crisis. And when it comes, it's very bad. Now she has a very good relationship with my elder brother. So when I came home, they were speaking on the phone. In Nigeria, it was night. In the US, it was day. But this time around, the conversation was unusual. Regularly, their conversation was full of laughter, light mood, conversations about their plans. But this time around, there was so much panic. And I was in my room, but I could hear my brother was like panicking, like, it's okay, calm down, okay. And I was like, wow, what's happening? So I came out of my room and she was having one of those episodes, the sickle cell attack. But this time, it was worse than normal. So my brother was trying to calm her, pray for her. And she was like, give the phone to your dad. My brother gave the phone to my dad and my dad prayed. Give the phone to mommy. My mom prayed. She was so desperate for relief because she was in so much pain. And I was just standing and I was watching everything that was happening. And I was just muttering my own prayer underneath my breath. I was so concerned and scared, like, oh my God, what's happening? And then it got to a point. She has a little child, right? The child then was like maybe 5-7 years. I'm not sure. Now she's a nurse in the US. So she has already taught her child how to check for a pulse, how to do the CPR, how to call 911 and all that. So the child knew all that. So at a point, my brother couldn't hear her anymore. And he was like, hello, hello, hello. And she wasn't answering. Now he wasn't sure if it was network or if something had happened. So he didn't want to end the call in case something had happened, because if he tries to call back, nobody's going to pick. So now there's tension. I was like, what has happened? We weren't hearing her anymore. Then all of a sudden, the child was playing outside. So he came back inside and then he saw the mom on the floor. I was like, mom. And now my brother is like, okay, hello. And he called his name. Can you hear me? Because the phone now obviously should be close to the mother. So the child could see that the phone, there was a call on the phone. And he was like, uncle, she's not breathing. I can't feel a pulse. Like I said, he's trained to know to check for pulses and all that. And he was like, I can't feel a pulse. And my brother was like, is there nobody at home, like an adult that can help? And he was like, no, there's nobody. I'm all by myself and all that. He told the boy to call 911, and the boy was like, okay, he's going to call 911. And along the line, the call ended. Now panic sets in. We don't know if she's fine. We don't know what's happening. If you try to call back, nobody's taking the calls. So that happened for the remainder of my holiday at home. We didn't know what happened. So I went back to school. I finished the whole session and then I came back home. And then my brother was telling me what happened. Now, before I continue, let me give you a backstory. My elder brother, that's the one that was speaking to my cousin, right? Then his way of saving or making investment is by buying gold. So he will buy gold jewelry, gold necklace, gold anything, and he will wear it. Then when he needs the money, he will go and sell it and then get the money. So that was his own way of saving. Now he was in school at that point, right? That before this incident, there was a program that happened in his school, a church program, and then my pastor went to his school. I'll attach the picture of my pastor, Reverend Craig Omorotionmwan. So my pastor went for the program. My pastor didn't even know him personally. My pastor didn't know him. He just attended the program. That's my brother now. I think it was either a 3 or a 2 days program. So the first day, my pastor was ministering, Reverend Craig was ministering, and my brother kept getting a notion in his spirit because he was wearing one of his gold wristwatches. And the push was, sew that wristwatch. I was like, maybe it's his mind. Day 1 passed. Day 2 again. I think it was a 3 days program. I'm not sure. But the next day, he kept getting the admonition in his spirit. Sew that your wristwatch. Sew it to this man of God. Sew it to this man of God. And he's still like, And then the last day, the same thing. And then the Spirit of God told him, do you want your sister to die? Now, the sister is not me, obviously, because you know when the Spirit of God is speaking to you, you know what he's saying. So he understood that that sister meant that my cousin in the US. I was like, do you want your sister to die? Sew that wristwatch. Sew that wristwatch. And he hesitated. The program finished. Reverend Craig went out of the hall, and just as he was about to enter his car, my brother just made up his mind, you know, let me just sew this. So he ran to Reverend Craig and then put the wristwatch in his hand and knelt down. And obviously, like I said, Reverend Craig didn't know him. Reverend Craig didn't ask him for the seed. Reverend Craig was just ministering on his own. He wasn't pushing for anything. And then he put the seed, and you know, because Reverend Craig was already done, right, he was already on his way out, so he just like hurriedly blessed, because he wasn't the only person coming, there were other people coming to sow their seeds, and so he just like lay hands and like, you are blessed, and you get. So it wasn't like something that was planned. So that's that backstory. Hold that backstory now, because it will be essential for the remainder of the story. So now back to the part where I left off. So my brother was telling me, now after that whole thing happened, I went back to school. In the following days, he got a call from the paramedics, right? And I think they got his number from the phone, from the call log, and they told him, hello, you're related to so person, right? And my brother was like, yes. And they were like, we are asking for your permission to take her to the mortuary because she's dead. My brother was devastated, you know, but he had to like compose himself, and he told them, okay, we are related, but we are not immediate family. She's my cousin, so I cannot give you that permission. You have to call her family, maybe her mother or her father, but I can't give you any permission. So they ended the call. I think they called her mother or her father, because she's the only person from her family in the US. Her parents and siblings were not with her. So my brother was like, oh my God, you know, like this sad. But before then, when the whole crisis happened, my brother said, if my sister does not come back to life, I will go and meet Reverend Craig to take back my wristwatch. That's such a funny thing that he said. But he said it out of a place of frustration, not out of a place of fear, uncertainty, like what happened to my cousin? Right? That's before he found out she was dead. He was like, if my cousin dies, I'm going to go and take that wristwatch, because like I said, that wristwatch was gold. It was expensive. So at this point, I think, you know, everybody has kind of like, okay, since the paramedics called, that means she's dead, and everybody just chilled. One day, my brother got a call from our dead cousin's phone. Imagine the dead calling. And he was like, what's this? You know, when you're seeing a call from someone that's died, and you're like, what's this? Who could this be? And then he thought, or is someone trying to prank me? He picked up the call, and then a lady answered like, hello. And he was like, who is this? Why are you calling people with the number of someone that is dead? Why are you playing pranks? Like, he was so upset. He was even shouting at the person, like, what's the meaning of that? And then the voice said, don't worry, relax, it's me, your cousin. My brother was like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? He was still upset. He was like, no, calm down, it's me. And then, you know, when someone that you know is saying something, there are some things she will say, and he will know that, okay, you are really the one. I was like, what happened? They say you were dead. What happened? And then she narrated the story. So apparently she died. Yes, she was dead for 3 days. Apparently she was taken into the mortuary. Yes. And then 3 days after she died, she woke up. She looked around and she said, who are all these people sleeping here? You know, she was trying to understand where she was and why there were so many people sleeping around her. She sat up and she was like, why are people sleeping all around me? And then the mortuary attendant on duty scampered. I will not even say round. This is beyond running. She scampered for her life. Like, what is this? She ran away. And then it was gradually she realized she was in a mortuary. For those of you who don't know what mortuary is, a morgue. And then that's when it hit her that she actually died. And she was taken to the mortuary. So for those of you that will say, maybe she did not actually die. Maybe if it was a near-death experience, it's a different case, or a hospital experience where she died and woke up few minutes or few seconds or few hours later. No, she was dead for 3 days. She was taken to a mortuary. Now, for you to be taken to a mortuary, that means it has been confirmed that you are dead. Do you understand? I know people will still want to doubt, like, but I'm telling you, this is what happened firsthand. My brother came to my church to share that testimony. Until tomorrow, we will keep sharing that testimony. Now, what happened was that it was that seed that my brother sowed, that seed of that wristwatch that he was instructed to sow. That was what kept that my cousin from dying. You see how it happened, right? If he didn't obey that instruction, she would have been dead till today. But that's why when you sow to God, it's not about you giving God. Because what do you want to give? Tell me, what kind of seed can buy a human life back? Even millions and billions cannot get someone back from the dead. But a simple act of obedience of sowing that wristwatch was what preserved my cousin's life. And I love how God works. God let her die so that he can prove himself. Why did he let her die? Why? No, that's not the question. God, some people believe that when you are falling, before you fall, God will catch you. No. God can let you fall, break into pieces, and he will couple you back together, make you brand new, that it will be as though nothing ever happened to you. So that was what happened in that situation. God let her die. It reminds me of the story of Lazarus. When people were telling God, Lazarus is sick. Do you not care if he dies? And Jesus waited even until Lazarus was dead and buried. He was, in those days, they don't just bury, they like wrap, the Egyptian mummy, they will wrap that person. But he came back to life with that wrap. That's what it reminds me of. So my cousin died, was taken to the mortuary, but God raised her back to life. That's the God that I serve, the God that raises someone back to life. Hallelujah. So this testimony is real. It's not fiction. I didn't fabricate this story, right? There are many clips on my church website, on my church YouTube live, where this testimony has been shared. On one occasion, I even shared the testimony myself because I was called to corroborate the story for those who were maybe doubting. So it's true, it's real, it happened, and that's the testimony. Thank you for watching up to this point. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, like, follow, share. See ya.